Hello and welcome back to the Down to the Wire podcast. We are here with our 10th episodes. We've done
double digits.
Double digits. That's like probably around 20 hours of Jack Slade and Jack Freeman. How are you, Jack?
I am good. Chiefs didn't play this weekend, and I don't care. We're healthy. We're going into the next round, and we've got the Cleveland Browns. So it's a good time to be a Chiefs fan.
I love how I'm pretty sure every podcast is kind of like the marker at the start is how the Chiefs did on the weekend, and that determines.
It's usually good, so we're always having a good week.
And you may have heard a little chuckle there. We've also got Josh back with us.
Hello.
By popular demand, I guess. Thanks for joining us, Josh.
That's okay.
We're gonna have a good old chinwag about the NFL. Obviously, first round of the playoffs this week.
Thank you for having me back.
That's all right. No worries. Thanks for being here. So yeah, we're gonna have a good chinwag about the NFL playoffs. Happened this week. Big fixtures, big results. Some perhaps some surprises in there as well. We're also going to be talking about football on the continent. A bit of European football. Perhaps a little bit of a history lesson as well. A lot of statistics. If you like numbers, this is a good episode to listen to. I know definitely from the football bit because I've done a bit of research on that, and Jack's done some as well. But anyway, we shall kick it off. Josh, have you got a highlight of the week?
Yeah, I do.
You do. All right. Okay.
I think it's probably Crawley Town beating Leeds United and knocking them out of the FA Cup with Mark Wright from Towie coming off the bench.
He could go on to win PFA Player of the Year with performances like this, beating Leeds United 3-0.
Yeah,
that's the stuff that gets you those awards.
Fair enough. That was indeed a shocker. We'll come back to that later because we've got a little bit of a segment about the FA Cup, but it is always interesting to see was it Marine who played Spurs?
Didn't fare quite as well though.
No, not quite, but still interesting. Regardless. Okay, so that's your highlight of the week. Shall I go next, Jack, or do you want to go next?
No, I'll go next.
Okay.
Because your segue's better.
It does.
Mine is the Cleveland Browns, as per mentioned, playing the Chiefs next week. Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers last night, and it's quite funny because the Steelers fielded a really weak team 2 weeks ago, which is the only reason the Browns got into the playoffs, and the Browns end up
doing them over,
beating them 2 weeks in a row to beat them in the playoffs.
I mean,
as well.
I didn't watch the game, but I've seen some of the highlights, and it looks like it was a pretty bizarre game. But like I said, we'll come back to that later because we've got a full-on section about the NFL. But yeah, that's a good one, and it's a particular highlight because it means the Chiefs now face. It would have been the Bills, right?
Yeah. No, it would have been the Ravens.
The Ravens, okay.
And they're a team with a lot of swagger, so it's a lot nicer to play a team like the Browns who, they
don't have swagger. Have no swagger. Okay, my highlight of the week was Haaland's goal for Dortmund. I don't know whether either of you saw this, but it was just silk, really. As in, lovely pass. It was like one of those goals, like when you play FIFA, it was one of those goals where you could probably shoot 3 or 4 times, but you're like, nah, I'll just pass it back because I want to make this like a really good team goal. It was one of those basically, chipped to the back post by Mr. Jadon Sancho, and very what word am I looking for? Efficiently finished by Haaland. So yeah, that was my highlight of the week. And on the note of European football. I thought it'd be interesting. I read an article the other day, and the topic was basically European football. Is this the year of change in 2021? Now that seems like quite a dramatic title, but bear with us. So yeah, they were basically the article's kind of comparing where all of the leagues are at. Currently, where they all are in this season, who's top and who's what points everyone are on, and so on and so forth. But yeah, basically the summary of the article is that I don't know whether either of you two would agree with this, but the top European league seems to go in cycles, don't they? Not so much the Premier League because it's a bit more competitive, but yeah, it goes in cycles. So, Serie A for a very long time was kind of dominated by AC Milan. Would I be right in saying that, Josh? You might be a bit more clued up on this than I would.
Yes and no, I think, because I'm thinking back to the early to mid 2000s, AC Milan were a quality side. So I'm thinking the AC Milan with, Cafu, Nesta, Maldini,
Dida,
Gattuso, Dida, Pirlo, Shevchenko, Kaká, Inzaghi. You're looking at a really, really good team.
Yeah.
But I think they did win Serie A at least a couple of times. But I think most of their dominance, I guess, was in Europe.
Yeah.
So between 2003 and 2007, they won the Champions League twice and came runner-up in 2005 as well. But yeah, a very good side. But I think it was fairly evenly shared domestically with Juve.
Yeah, so I think that is in. I guess that's kind of a good point. Actually, is in. I think for how many? I think I can't remember how many years in a row now. But Juve have basically dominated Serie A for a while now.
I got a feeling it's 9.
Yeah,
I got a feeling it's 9.
I was going to say it feels like nearly 10 years.
Yeah, it's a long time, and it's not. There hasn't really been a close competitor. Every now and again, maybe Napoli would pop up and kind of take it to within the last couple of weekends and then drop off. But as in, it's not been particularly close. Basically so what I thought we could do is perhaps go through not the Premier League, because obviously we've talked about the Premier League quite a lot, and I think it's fairly.
I wouldn't even say that's changing up. I wouldn't. I'd probably say the classic teams are still the top ones.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Is in the Premier League is always, when you think about it, Liverpool won it last year, City won it twice in a row. Before that, it was Chelsea. Before that, it was Leicester. Before that, it generally mixes around anyway. That's generally how the Premier League is. But so I thought we'd kind of go perhaps through some of the other European leagues, so Serie A, Bundesliga, La Liga, and Liga, and kind of look at where they are, and basically just kind of dissect what we think is going on, because it seems to be that there's, like I said, leagues tend to go in cycles and teams go in cycles, but it's almost like they're all changing all at once, which I suppose is interesting from a football perspective, but as a Liverpool fan and as a United fan as well, Jack, looking at the Champions League and things like that, it could make things interesting next season.
Well, I'd definitely say it gives the British teams more of a chance.
Do you think?
Purely
Well,
on
I
the
guess
basis,
more competitive, yeah.
The other leagues will have more people contending in a sense, but firstly, when you've got more rivals domestically, it means you can't rest your sides as often.
No.
But then secondly, when you've got more competition domestically, it doesn't mean that one team sort of harvests the fruits of the labour of all of the other teams. You know what I mean? Just keeps taking the cream of the crop into theirs. It's like, well, now there's 4 or 5 teams battling out for players. All of a sudden, that top team doesn't quite have the abundance of players filtering in and out of the club, which could or could not be successful. I mean, I guess teams like, well, I was going to say Man United then from mid 2000s stage, but I sort of backed out of myself there because they do like to just buy players from the other clubs in England, but they're a bit more international in their purchases. But when you consider about players like Teddy Sheringham, Andy Cole, Alan Smith from Newcastle, they sort of just take the best of the lot. But nowadays you don't see there's not one team in England / Wales, if you count them part of the Premier League, that actually sort of just takes all of the good domestic players anymore. So perhaps this will be a sort of changing of the guard for the other leagues, even if it's not for the better for them in Europe. Yeah,
and I mean, I guess for me, one of the clubs that's always been like that since for the majority of my time watching football, Juve have always been like that. Like when you look at the players that Juve sign, generally they tend to stay within Italy. Like players like Bernardeschi, I can't remember his name now. He's now moved to Barcelona, midfielder. Pjanic, he was at Roma, wasn't he?
He was on my mind as well, and I was thinking, what is that?
As in they kind of, like you said, they kind of take the cream of the crop from the rest of the league. But yeah, do you know what that's like?
Bayern Munich love doing that as well.
Yes, yeah, another perfect example is in Serge Gnabry, wasn't he? Wasn't he somewhere else in Bundesliga before? Bayern.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was at Schalke, and then he went over to West Brom and Arsenal, then went back over, or some. So I'm pretty sure Schalke may have been in that route somewhere.
Well, you know,
Players like-
you got like Matt Hummels, Nicolas Sula,
Goretzka.
Yeah, Goretzka is another one. Yeah, perfect example. You know, they just kind of just steal all of the talent from all of the other
Manuel
teams.
Neuer as well.
Yeah, because he was Schalke, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I guess that's an interesting point, actually, Jack. Like you said about signings, you know, as in, just for context, you know, you've got AC Milan, who are sitting top of Serie A at the moment on 40 points, followed by Milan on 37, Roma on 34, Atalanta on 31, Napoli on 31, and Juve on 31. So Juve right now, they're sixth, although there are 3 teams on 31 points, they're sixth on goal difference. 9 points behind AC Milan, which is interesting because I can't honestly say that I followed Serie A avidly over the past couple of years, but that seems like a fairly big gap. We're about halfway through the season now.
Well, yeah, this is where we were going on about in previous weeks when you see teams like Villa in the top half or in there and amongst it. And it's like, you know, same when Leicester won the league. It was like, okay, this is no longer a early season, you know, everyone's trying to find their order in the league. It is now a case of we're halfway through. If you're doing well, you're doing well on merit, and if you're doing bad, you're going to have a long season ahead of you because everyone's starting to break up a bit. Like you were saying, 9 points. That's no longer what, you know. It's not just it's early stages, you know, 3 points. It's 9. That's 3 games. That's a lot, and that builds up over time.
Yeah, and I should qualify with as well is that Juve have got a game in hand, so you can assume that would, if they win their game in hand, that could be 6 points. Yeah. But still, that's 6 points is it's not like 1 point, is it? It's a fairly substantial gap. You know, you're assuming that Milan are at some point going to lose more than twice in order for Juve to overtake them or goal difference.
They've dropped 17 points already this season.
Yeah, they are
16 games. That's not great.
No,
that's not what the classic Juve of the last 9 seasons have done.
Yeah, and I think the it's interesting because I think you've seen perhaps it's almost like Serie A's had a mini revival. I don't know what you guys think, but, as in Conte went back there from Chelsea, didn't he? And that's a top class manager. You've also got Lukaku left United to go to Inter Milan.
Yeah, he's done properly well there.
Yeah, he's done really well. Now Eriksen went to Inter Milan. From what I can tell, I don't think he's done particularly well, but still, it's a fairly
But that's the thing, though. The Italian teams don't tend to make big money signings, apart from Ronaldo and possibly Higuain when he went over there. The bulk of what they do is dirt cheap signings, and they got Eriksen, for pennies. So you know what I mean. That's the thing as well. As much as they take a lot of the good talent, they're always really savvy in how they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll never overdo it. They won't, go big risks like Man United, for instance, and go and buy Alexis Sanchez for loads. But they'll get Alexis Sanchez in 2 years' time when it flops for pretty much nothing.
But do you think part of that is because in the past they've, when they've spent money, they haven't necessarily done well in Europe? Whereas all of a sudden, if you've got AC Milan and Inter Milan find themselves in the Champions League next year, as in that's a fairly big statement, and then perhaps there's a bit more money to kind of reinvest. As in, you look at the AC Milan team that played Liverpool in 2005 and won it in 2007. As in, like Josh said, you've got Gattuso, Kaka, Maldini, Crespo, Shevchenko, Dida. These are like Pirlo. Pirlo's like the forgotten man in that team, and he was crazy good. And that's a team that costs money. So I don't know, I guess perhaps do you reckon there's been perhaps a bit of a change in mindset from players? As in, I think in the past, like Serie A probably would have been like one of the last places you'd go in terms of the big leagues. Maybe joint with Liga. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
Well, I think the stock of any league is almost certain to rise when it's competitive.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that it has to be close every season.
No.
As in, the Premier League wasn't close at all last season. But I don't think you'd find anybody out there who'd argue that the Premier League was not a competitive league. Like, the Premier League is a competitive league. Whereas I think when you've got 9 or 10 years of one team, either romping away with the title or,
winning.
Always having that extra gear, or always having that
yeah.
little bit to get them over the line to win the title. That of course the stock of a league is going to go down, and when you talk about signings and Italian clubs, potentially signing on the cheap or signing players who might be past their best, or players like Lukaku who United signed and
Alexis Sanchez
didn't really kick on like they wanted him to, and then they ship him on. But then if you go into a league where every year for 9 years in a row the aim is to just unseat Juve, well, I think what's happening right now is the best thing that could possibly happen to Serie A. I think it's a few years overdue. As in, the Serie A needs to have a different champion. I think any league that has the same champion for 9 years in a row can't claim to be a competitive league.
No.
To be fair, they have this issue in the NFL with the New England Patriots winning the AFC East for, what was it, the last 15 years or something, or they only lost it once in the last 15. And then, as you were saying, the other teams, they're not great on a European stage because, as you were saying, they create teams to challenge Juventus because they know you've only got to beat Juventus. You know what I mean? That's their goal. They haven't got a hope of winning in Europe, so they go, we just need to unthrone Juventus. Now that they have, it could very much open it up for them all because they go, well, that sort of burdens off us. Now it's an open game, and now we can start building a team which can actually compete for Europe, as you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great personally because it was in watching AC Milan sort of fairly early on when I watched football, and watching even Inter Milan under Jose Mourinho was definitely no mugs, as in they won a lot of silverware under Mourinho that one season. And just to have a few more teams in the Italian league just to be a bit more competitive, really. So I think it's so. Yeah, and also going back to players, like Zlatan has gone back to AC Milan. So I think, to be honest with you, I think this could be the end of Juve's little period of dominance in Serie A.
See, I'm not 100% sure. Like, they've just got Pirlo as a new manager, and he's not sat under anybody for ages. Like, you know what I mean? He's not like Zidane, who's sat under Mourinho and Ancelotti.
No.
And he's not like some other the big managers who will sit under someone for a little bit and then get going. It's like, this is Pirlo's first time, and it's like, well, unless Pirlo's not very good, or he's still just teething problems and he'll eventually be good, I wouldn't be surprised if Juventus either cut ties if it's not working out, because they're a big enough club that they can claw any manager they want, and then they'll probably end up winning every game remaining of the season. But at this stage, definitely could see Juventus not winning the title at the end of the season.
And listen, the awkward thing for Pirlo is that when a team has won the league 9 years in a row, the only way is down domestically. The glass ceiling that Juve haven't been able to shatter is to win in Europe. But right now, Juve don't look anywhere near winning anything in Europe. They don't even look like they've got the form to win a league that they've won 9 times in a row.
And it's so heavily reliant on Ronaldo as well.
Yeah, it's one of those awkward ones where, Juve in 6th, I don't think Juve would ever be happy in 6th, no matter what the context. But especially when the context is they've won the league 9 times in a row, and Pirlo's, it's unfortunate in that sense, but he's almost between a rock and a hard place, isn't he? He can't really win. I mean, if Juve win the league again this year but don't win anything in Europe, well,
so what?
People would probably say, well, so what? It's the 10th in a row. Pirlo's just done what Allegri and Sarri and I can't remember who came before. Oh, Conte. He's just done what those 3 or 4 managers did before him anyway. I mean, the stock in terms of comparing with other leagues, I think the yardstick you have is the Champions League. So when teams from a given league go deep into the Champions League, like into the semi-finals, into the final, that's when, generally speaking, people would say that the stock of the league is high. And I can think back, it's probably happened since, but I remember, go back 10 years in the Champions League, or maybe a little bit longer, and you had like 3 of the 4 semi-finalists were Premier League teams, and that happened a couple of years in a row. It was Barcelona and 3 Premier League teams, so like Barcelona, Man U, Chelsea, Liverpool, and the next year like Barcelona, Man U, Chelsea, somebody else. And
no, probably Liverpool again if I'm on. I don't forget it, but I don't think Who was the fourth team at that stage?
Would have been Arsenal.
Chelsea. Arsenal, yeah, Arsenal were never going up. Back in 2006. That was the only time
But,
they ever did anything in Europe,
I think so. Ultimately, whether the stock of Serie A is going to rise to that extent, probably not yet. But before that, the stock of the league will rise when someone else wins it. Long run, if say AC Milan win it next year, win Serie A this season, it would be interesting to see how they go in Europe next year. Because, obviously they're doing this whilst not being in Europe, and I think that might well be a trend across Europe. I'm not saying it's the only reason for some of the some of the teams that have been first not being first. Teams like PSG, teams like Juve, and Bayern are top, but they're not running away with it. I think, obviously you've got a fixture pilot because of COVID. Yeah. And, those teams that aren't in Europe do stand to benefit from that. Like in the Premier League, Leicester do stand to benefit from that. Are they good enough to win the league? Probably not. But they're hanging around. And, the Liverpools, the Man Uniteds, the Man City, they're not leaving them behind.
No.
And I wonder whether, an AC Milan would really benefit from that. But
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Impact for Champions League basically. Right, okay, moving on to the Bundesliga then. So now I think I'm probably right in saying that Bayern is still top. So I think the Bundesliga is probably the league where it's going to be less change perhaps than some of the other European leagues. But just for context, Bayern Munich have scored 44 goals already this season. Which is their second best tally in the Bundesliga after 14 games, behind only themselves, with 48 goals in 76-77. So, right now, this is the most prolific in front of goal that Bayern Munich have been, which is probably a big part due to Lewandowski because he's class. But equally, they've conceded 21 goals, which is only the fifth best goals against average kind of thing, which is very unlike Bayern Munich. And I think I'm right in saying, just reading my statistics, they've not conceded more at this stage since 91-92, where they conceded 23. So it's very much kind of all-out attack from Bayern Munich. And you've also got kind of Leipzig, Leverkusen and Dortmund. And what's interesting is that Dortmund are currently fourth. Which is, kind of a bit of a disruption to the orders. And generally it's been, Bayern followed by Dortmund and then followed by the best of the rest, I guess.
Although I would say that league is particularly similar to the Premier League this season in that Dortmund are fourth, but they're only 3 points off second.
Yes, that is true.
But at the same time, it's like, points-wise, from first down, it goes 33, 31, 29, 28, 25, 25, 24, 23, 23, 21, 19. So there is about 5 teams separated by about 2 points. So
it's crazy,
you still got it is getting the same thing as what the Premier League is happening. And that's probably, as you were saying, because of COVID.
Yeah.
Big fixture pilot, but it just means the bigger teams can't push away, as you were saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess Bayern Munich are clearly the best team in the Bundesliga. I don't think anyone would argue with that. I guess it's interesting to see the kind that those statistics. Clearly, they have a very specific style of play that they're rolling with. Kind of not all out attack, but is in a very attacking mindset. So I guess it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And like you said, as in, Leipzig are 2 points behind at this point in the season. That's not. And for context, I'm just looking at their form. Win-win. Yeah, so their form in the last 5 games is pretty much exactly the same. So Leipzig are right up there, and that's without Timo Werner as well. Who's
big use he is.
Did you say sorry?
Big use he is, isn't he? At Chelsea.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, who knows? They could be top if they still had Werner there. And yeah, so you got. It's just a bit of a weird one, I guess, as in. It's all very kind of close at the top, despite Munich's apparent dominance. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think the Bundesliga is only going to Munich. I can't really see it going anywhere else. I don't know what you guys think based on what you've seen. I suppose in the Champions League as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the goals against. I do see what you mean when you're saying about the goals conceded record, because
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
after Bayern, who are top, you have to go all the way down to 7th to find a team with as bad a goals against record as them. But to be fair, I mean, the fact that they've scored 15 more than the next best.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, this is the thing.
It doesn't matter how many
they've
conceded.
They've conceded almost the highest. No, I lie. Schalke. Wow, I didn't even realise that Schalke are in the relegation zone. Flippin' heck.
Oh yeah, Schalke have been up and down for the last 2-3 years.
Oh, have they? Okay.
They're not the same team as before.
No, but as in generally they're all kind of around the 24, 23, 22, 25. Yeah. As in fairly higher number of goals conceded. Yet they still, by a long distance, have the best goal difference because they've scored 46.
That's crazy.
Which is just so. Obviously, these statistics that I had in the notes are a bit out of date now, but that's just mental, isn't it? 46 goals. Dear me.
That's for 15 games. I'm just gonna look at the Prems now. Premier League. I bet no one's even close to that.
I mean, to be honest,
they've played 17. Yeah, the highest in the Prem is Liverpool on 37, and they've played 2 games more. So they're 9 goals behind, but they've played 2 games more. Gosh,
bizarre. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. I feel like the Bundesliga could just do with somebody else winning apart from Bayern and Dortmund, really. As in, if Dortmund win it, as in they won it a couple of times. And Mr. Klopp. But yeah, it would be nice for like Leverkusen or Leipzig just to kind of sneak in there and win it. I mean, it's probably going to be Bayern though, just because, like we've said, they kind of steal all of the best players really from
To be fair though, all of the German teams are doing well in the European competitions as
yeah.
So perhaps they are, Bayern are a gulf ahead, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a few of them doing well in Europe these next 2 seasons, because they're all, you know what I mean? Well, they're all still very tight, and it's like, well, if they're this tight at this stage, I mean, even look at Freiburg all the way down 8th. They've won their last 5 to get to 23 points. So it's like, well, they're miles off. Well, not miles off, but they're off the pace. But they're on the hottest team in the league, and it's like, well, they could end up there as well. So there could be a lot of teams that go, yeah, we fancy it this year if they're in and amongst Europe. So yeah.
See what happens.
Less of a change of the guard there, but definitely more competitive from the other teams in Europe.
We will move on that kind of note about less of a change of the guard. We'll move on to La Liga, because I think this is probably one of the more interesting ones. So I'm just going to get the table up because I think I remember what the. Okay, so we've said about Bayern Munich perhaps being a bit not weak defensively, but perhaps just a little bit more. Little bit less concerned with their goals conceded. Atletico Madrid in La Liga, after 15 games, they've conceded 6 goals. Isn't that just crazy? Like, just for context, that means in 15 games they've conceded less than Liverpool conceded in that one game against Villa.
That is pretty nuts. Well, that's less than a goal again. Well, less than a goal every 2 games.
Yeah, so they've conceded 6
every 2.5 games.
Which is, I think, the only team that have done better than that was Deportivo La Coruña in 93-94, where they conceded 5. So that defensive statistic is just absolutely bonkers. But on the flip side of that, it's not like they've been all defensive. So Luis Suarez signed for Atletico this season, which was an absolutely genius move by Simeone, I think.
3, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether it was free, but if it was like 4-5 million, something absolutely tiny like that. So they've scored 24 goals from open play this season. The only team that scored more is Barcelona with 29, and Suarez has scored a third of these goals. And has scored with a goal every 1.4 shots on target. So basically every 2 shots Suarez basically scores, which interestingly, and this would really caught me off guard, is his best rate within a season since arriving at Barcelona in 2014. So
to be honest though, on those ones he's got to be more savvy with it, I bet he doesn't get as many chances.
No,
but
because
the ones
it's
he
Atletico.
gets, I bet, are amazing because they're always counters. But when he's playing for Barca, I bet he probably got about 15 shots a game. So it's like, well, unless you're scoring, 7 or 8 a game, it's like, yeah.
Still, though.
I think that one could, but as you say, that is incredible finishing.
Like, surely...
Patrick Bamford's pretty similar to that this season, where he's got pretty low expected goals because of how few shots he has, but the shots he's having, he's scoring every time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about, perhaps Josh, you'll kind of back me up on this, but as in, that's scary, because what they're basically saying is that Suarez is almost at his best, based on that statistic alone. I know you can't base it on that, but as in, they're saying he's almost as good as when he left Liverpool in terms of how prolific he is. And Barcelona have let him go for free, pretty much.
Yeah, I think he's lost half a yard, maybe a yard, isn't he? You can see that, but he's kind of, I don't know, he's kind of this wily old fox of a player, isn't he? And, he's in terms of, not talking about his personality now or biting or the controversy, but his football. He's a smart player. He always has been a smart player, but I think he's one of those players that, I don't know, as in, like, I think part of what made him good was how, without being blindingly fast, he was quick and he could beat a defender by thinking a couple of steps ahead of him, and that's the point. I think that kind of football brain
sticks with you, I guess.
Yes, pardon. Yeah, sticks with you. Yeah, exactly. And I think so prolific. Not as prolific in one sense of the word, but clinical.
He's efficient. And I guess just for context again, so in terms of the table at the moment, you've got Atletico Madrid are currently first on 38 points. Then you've got Real Madrid on 37, Barcelona on 34, Villarreal on 32. But Atletico are 1 point ahead of Real with 3 games in hand.
That's insane. I bet they're a little bit frustrated because I bet they just want to play the games when you're in form that they're just
definitely.
Give me another game. But yeah,
and I mean, I guess I don't know about you, but with La Liga, Real Madrid and perhaps not so much Real Madrid, because I think you can very much pinpoint the beginning of Madrid's wobbly period as to when Ronaldo left. But Barcelona, and we've spoken about this on the podcast before, Jack and I, that it's been a kind of gradual decline, isn't it? And I think that table very much shows that. As in, can you imagine, like, even 5 years ago, if Barcelona had been 4 points behind Atletico Madrid when Atletico have 3 games in hand? So, halfway through the season as well. That's a big margin.
It's a 10-point gap, effectively.
Yeah, that is a big margin. And just for context, like, how ridiculous that goals against is in Real have conceded 15. I'm just looking down the table. You've got Sevilla who've conceded 13. They're the next lowest after Atletico who've conceded 6.
Does that perhaps show how non-competitive that
Maybe.
league is?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the other ones, like the Italian league, it's a changing of the guard in the sense that there's a lot more teams that can compete with Juventus.
Yeah.
So it means the points are more evenly spread. And then you go to German league and it's like, well, no one can compete with Bayern, but there's a lot more teams competing for Europe. But when you look at the Spanish league, it's no more competitive than it was, say, 5-6 years ago when they'd have like 7 teams in the Champions League by virtue of winning the Champions League, the Europa, and then getting 4 people, and they just get all sorts of ways to get teams in there. But you know what I mean? It's still the same teams, the Villarreal, Sevilla, and then the 2 Madrid clubs and Barcelona. But maybe that gap to the rest of the league is just monumental because they don't operate. I don't know how the Italian league and the German league operate, but the Premier League operates on a basis of there's almost like there's a wealth split. The TV revenue money is split out. Obviously, it's not directly equal for every team because where you finish is what you get. But in the Spanish league, they don't operate on a collective bargaining system or anything like that. It is the TV broadcasters will pick and choose what games they want. So unless your team is picked for a game, you're not going to get any revenue money. because no one's picking a Sheffield United game in if they could. You know what I mean?
No.
Sky Sports don't want to show Sheffield United, but they have to because it's part of the agreement they got with the Premier League. But the Spanish league doesn't do that, and this is where you see that sort of gulf in quality because those lower down teams get no revenue from anywhere unless they start to produce good players, which they're just going to have to offload to the big teams anyway because they need the money from them, and it's the vicious circle there.
And I mean, is this an argument? Because back not that long ago, would I be right in saying that the Spanish league only had 2 European places, Champions League places now? Have I imagined
I don't remember that, but
maybe I've imagined that.
Case. I don't remember that,
but anyway, just like Villarreal are sat in 4th at the moment. They've won 8, drawn 8, lost 2, and right now they're 4th, which would mean that they're in a place for the Champions League, and that's not really Champions League form, is it? But then, having said that, Barcelona have only won 2 more games. After the same number of games played, so it's hardly lightning form. So I'll be honest with you, I feel like you could look at that league. Yes, Atletico have, been very good defensively and have actually been pretty good offensively as well. But I feel like Real Madrid and Barcelona aren't really doing their part of the deal, are they?
It almost feels like they're in a lull for 1 year.
Yes, they are. Well,
very
we say for 1 year. I feel like
Premier League had.
Go on.
When Leicester won the league,
it
was like everyone was sort of on one off year, and it seemed like only Arsenal and Leicester were on a good year. I mean, you can't really say Leicester on a good year because that was just absolutely out of the ordinary year. But Arsenal were the only team that could have potentially compete with them, and they still bottled it. But you know what I mean? It's in a sense, it does feel like perhaps in a year or two's time, Barcelona and Real Madrid might just go, we're going to buy someone big and we're going to go again. Because to be fair, neither of them have bought or spent a lot of money on anyone for a little bit of time now. So
it's because Barcelona spent all their money, I think. I think they're struggling. They're struggling financially, aren't they, Barca? So we'll see how that one goes. But that one feels like a fairly substantial shift. I don't know about you two.
Well, it's nice because it almost had the vibe that Atletico was 3rd. And it was always going to be them 3rd. But now it's like, they're 1st.
Yeah.
Gosh, here we go. This is nice. It's a different way of playing as well. Because everyone used to play passing football over there. And it's like, well, Atletico are not that prototype. So perhaps see some of that good old-fashioned Sam Allardyce football making its way across the Spanish border.
Football. Oh, goodness.
You adore Sam Allardyce, don't you?
Park the bus.
You love it.
I don't get your fixation with Sam Allardyce. I really don't.
I feel like every league needs that. It's almost like the salt. The real grit of the league. It's what gives it a bit of heartiness. Gives it a bit of rigour.
You can keep your Pep Guardiolas and your Jurgen Klopps. Give us Sam Allardyce and we'll be fine.
Yes.
There we are.
Sam Allardyce and Tony Pulis top 2 is what we all ask.
There we are then. Right, we'll quickly move on to Liga before we kind of do a bit of an FA Cup roundup. The Liga, and this is interesting. Perhaps what we were saying about how COVID was playing its part. The statistics for Liga, there is the lowest win percentage when teams are playing at home, and the highest win percentage when teams are playing away. So I guess one is the opposite of the other, isn't it? In a single season in the history of the competitions, it's the highest it's ever been. So
basically, home advantage means nothing.
Yeah, home advantage is basically redundant in Liga in this season, which is quite interesting, I think. Perhaps it kind of shows you the dynamic
Linked to no crowd?
Yeah, I was about to say, it kind of shows you the importance of, as in the whole kind of home and away thing is a bit of a thing. It's like, does it really make a difference? Does the home advantage really matter? And I think, it doesn't unless you've got fans.
To be honest, if someone had said what leagues will miss the fans the most, I mean, you think of the Premier League and you see some real rivalries where people get scuffed up. You know what I mean? They proper hatred there. And then you go to the Italian leagues and they've got almost mobsters play. The crowds of some teams. And you go to the German leagues and you see, some of the displays.
Like the yellow
they
wall,
do.
isn't it?
Yeah, not once would someone have said, French leagues.
Yeah.
Those leagues have got some really hardy people there that you go, here we go. Apart from Marseille PSG, that's the only time I think I've ever seen a set of French fans get, aggy about something. So it does surprise me a little bit that that league in particular is the one which is missing atmosphere the most. Perhaps it's just the French players perhaps don't quite have the I'm trying to think of the right words here, but they're the same. They're not up for the games as much. Perhaps they don't really care that much.
There's not that kind of cult following.
No, it is very much we play football and we're just going to play the silky skills, and perhaps that rubs off as they don't really care when they're playing without a crowd to push them on.
Yeah, fair enough. So in Liga 1 so far this season, Lyon are currently top, 3 points clear of PSG and Lille. It's worth bearing in mind that Paris Saint-Germain have not, they've had a lot of injuries and just inconsistent performance. So I think this is a stat that I thought was mental, is that they've only been able to select the same starting 11. No, they haven't been able to, sorry. They've not been able to select the same starting 11 in any of their 18 league games because of injuries.
Wow.
Which again, it's pretty impressive.
That's very important because you need continuity to get going.
Exactly, and that again, that could be a sign of the impact of perhaps a pandemic on your, a bit of a weird pre-season and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
that is strange.
Yeah, what's I guess when you're looking at Lyon, the thing that's interesting is that they have the worst goals per. I think it's goals per game. It says per G. I'm assuming that'll be per game.
Yeah.
Differential in the top flight minus 6.5. So I guess what they're saying is that based on certain statistics, they score 6.5 goals less than they should do.
Oh no, XG. Sorry, that's expected goals per
game.
There
we go.
So, so that's like, for instance, De Bruyne has a very high expected goals because he'll shoot quite a lot from range. He'll hit the post quite a lot. Quite a few opportunities might come his way. Or there'll be situations where he's in the box and a shot's been taken, but it's not him. You know what I mean? It's not based directly on how many shots you have in and how likely they're to go in. It's more on where you are on the pitch, how often you're shooting. That sort of vibe. It's like, almost like on the law of averages, if De Bruyne shoots from outside the box 10 times, he should score on 2. And it's like, well, maybe De Bruyne shot outside the box 20 times and he hasn't scored on any of them. So it's like, well, he's got an expected goal of 4. But, as you were saying, their expected goals to what it actually is a lot lower than it should be. So
I guess in terms of for the rest of the French league, you could look at it and go, well, they're only going to get more prolific, you'd assume. Which I suppose is worrying, but equally, if you look at PSG stats right now, so they have the most clean sheets, most goals scored, most chances per game, the highest turnovers, so I'm guessing that's like interceptions and stuff, and the fewest goals conceded, and they've just appointed Mauricio Pochettino. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So I guess again, perhaps in Liga 1, even though PSG on top right now, you can see that it's probably starting to swing in that direction. But I guess to summarise this kind of European year of change, Serie A and La Liga are both looking very different in terms of what we've seen over the past sort of 10 years. So it'll be interesting.
And especially as PSG, they don't lose games. They can go almost a whole season. They almost have what Celtic have in the Scottish League. Well, another changing of the guard with Rangers winning now. But, yeah, you know what I mean? PSG for years haven't been challenged. And it's like they'll come away from a season with probably 1 or 2 losses. But lost a lot more games than they should have so far. So, yeah, could be, if anything, this sort of one step back could be about 5 steps forwards with a signing like Pochettino. So who knows what's going to happen? Who
knows? But yeah, interesting things happening in European football right now. So we'll see how it all pans out. You watch now. By the end of the season, PSG will win Liga 1, Juventus will recover and win Serie A, Real Madrid will win La Liga, and Munich will win the Bundesliga, and this would have been a redundant conversation. But there we are. Right, shall we move on to the FA Cup?
Let's.
Because why not? Now, before we start, I thought we could have a little bit of a discussion about the FA Cup. So what... Josh, what are your thoughts on the FA Cup as a tournament in general?
I think it's a very good tournament. I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit here because we're going to talk about what potential changes should be made. I think this is probably down to pure opinion, and other people would probably feel differently.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would definitely feel differently because a lot of people would say the FA Cup is all about tradition, but I think one thing that the FA Cup should do is to get rid of replays. I just think the way that football is now, you almost, like Jurgen Klopp is the one who's kind of voiced it and got himself into, headlines in the press because of it. But if you want teams to be playing their best 11 in the FA Cup, then don't have replays. And then if you have replays, don't expect teams to put out their best team midweek in a match in a competition that doesn't have the same amount of prestige as it used to have.
Do you think that's because of the League Cup, though? Like, that's my one gripe about cup competitions in England, Britain, is that the League Cup almost tarnishes what the FA Cup is, because they both carry equal weight. Maybe not quite. Maybe like the League Cup's 90% of what an FA Cup is, if someone were to value the worth of the trophy. But because you've got a League Cup, teams can win that. And it's not got very many teams in it to start with, so it's an easy one to win. But also, the FA Cup, every league, rightfully so, has a league and a cup competition. The cup competition is something different from the league. And I do just feel the League Cup, having that as well, it's like, well, you're sort of half in the value of these cup competitions because you've got 2 opportunities to win them now.
I wouldn't be sorry to see the League Cup go.
No.
And again, there'd be people out there who'd say, "Oh well, no, it should stay." I wouldn't be at all sorry to see the League Cup go, and I'd let the League Cup go, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But if I were in control of the football world, then I would get rid of the League Cup, and I would make FA Cup ties knockout on the day. Like I wouldn't have a replay.
What if instead of replays they made them 2 legs, just every game? I know that's a bit much, but replace those League Cup matches with 2-legged FA Cup games.
I think, I'm not saying that this is right, but I think that the issue is that, I'm only using Liverpool as an example because I know best what Klopp has done with his Liverpool teams rather than what other managers have done with their teams. If you think back to last season, Klopp plays a complete, second string, possibly second and third string 11 in the FA Cup against Everton, and he plays like, Curtis Jones scored a screamer, didn't he? But, Adam Lallana's the captain, Nat Phillips is playing at centre half, and that's the FA Cup, and that's the 3rd round, and that's against a Premier League team. It was this scenario was unique because Liverpool were flying out to Abu Dhabi or Dubai to play the Club World Cup, but the League Cup match, the League Cup tie that Liverpool had with Aston Villa, Klopp doesn't even hang around for. Like, he puts Neil Critchley in charge, and they basically play the academy guys. And then you've got FA Cup on the weekend. Villa play Villa play a bunch of youngsters. So I think I if you get rid of the League Cup, then
You think it's
I guess that's a start.
I guess in getting rid of the League Cup, you almost increase the value of the FA Cup, don't you? It's almost like you've kind of the importance of each trophy is diminished by the fact that the other one is present. And I guess, it's interesting what you say about the fixtures, because I'm pretty sure this season they have done one game and then knockout, haven't they? Because I think because of COVID they did that, but it would be nice to see that stay. And I understand fully the arguments against that. Yes.
That goes against tradition. And secondly, at the moment we're thinking of this from the point of view of a Premier League club. If you're
a minnow, you want the second legs.
Well, like
if you're a minnow,
you want to be playing at Anfield, Old Trafford.
Exactly, but you also want Liverpool or United or City or Leeds or Spurs. You want them coming to your home ground like that. That as an event is as big as it gets. But equally, the 2-leg argument. I mean, yes, it would
personally, I probably wouldn't really want a 2-leg, but I just thought I'd throw the question out there. But go on.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is if the FA Cup didn't just got rid of replays, well, you've still got as much chance. The chance of a small club drawing a big club isn't reduced. It just means that when you draw them, you're getting one match against them. That's either away or home. But I think it kind of, it's a bit of a catch-22, as in the tradition of the FA Cup And actually what makes the FA Cup so good is that you get a Crawley beating a Leeds, and you get a Havant and Waterlooville getting a draw at Anfield against Liverpool. That's the beauty of it, and it does seem
the magic
to have...
of the cup.
Exactly, it does seem to have this ability to just throw up shocks, but I don't think you necessarily water that down by getting rid of replays.
No.
And I think it might just lead to, a cup tie on a Saturday, and you've not had to play players in the League Cup. There's no risk of a replay. Clubs, top clubs might put their strongest team out, and that you're not going to get. You're not going to get held to a draw and then have to play another fixture midweek at some point. If we draw, we're going to extra time and then pens or whatever. I think it's a brilliant competition, the FA Cup, mind. I love the FA Cup.
I'll be honest. Sorry, go on.
Well, no, all I was going to say was it isn't what it used to be.
No.
There's no doubt about that.
I mean, perhaps I'm growing up in as in... I don't know, I've just always kind of looked at the FA Cup and thought it's what... And perhaps this is what you've both said, as in I've always looked at the FA Cup in the similar way that I look at the League Cup, in that it's only really good if you win it. As in, like, if you get to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. For example, if you get to the semi-finals of the Champions League, you go, do you know what? Semi-finals of the Champions League, that's not a bad innings for a season, but as in the FA Cup, it's one of those ones, unless you're in the final... I guess personally, this is perhaps a bit of a controversial opinion. I'm just kind of like, I don't really care about the FA Cup.
Yeah, well, I was going to say this.
I think that's what you're saying.
I love the FA Cup. Yeah, and as much as I love the FA Cup, when you check the fixtures and you find out, it's FA Cup week this weekend, there is that nagging feeling inside you, like, I wish it was the Premier League, really.
Yeah,
as in,
I exactly know that this weekend. I was just like, here we go. Back to fantasy football. Oh no, it's not. It's the FA Cup. And I'm just like, gosh, gotta wait a few more days.
When we were doing the notes last night, I was like, oh gosh, what are we going to talk about with the football? It's the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So there we are.
Nothing to talk about. Talk about something. Talk about a different league entirely.
There we are. Right, should we do a bit of a roundup of the... I say roundup. We're kind of only really talking about one of the main fixtures, as in... I don't think it's possible to go through all of the results, but I don't think we'd have the knowledge to.
You have like a soccer Saturday after the football. It's like Crawley Town 3, Leeds United 0. That game went to extra time. It's like, okay.
Newport County 1, Brighton 1. There we are. Right. Liverpool versus Villa.
And they took their time, didn't they, to win that one?
They did, yeah.
He brought Thiago on as well, didn't he?
He did bring Thiago
off the bench.
He did. Mm-hmm. Just exactly what you want to see when you're a 16-year-old playing football against Liverpool Football Club, isn't it? It was a bit of a weird game, to be honest. As in, it was always going to be. But do you know what? Actually, I just want to say something before. I kind of want to ask a question, right? So, obviously, Villa had to field a team of basically, like, under 18s because...
under 16s, some of them.
I don't think they'd be under 16. I don't think they'd even be allowed, would it?
Is it not? I could have sworn that. I saw videos of people like celebrating that their kid was up playing.
Oh, maybe.
So
I don't know.
I thought they were that young, but I haven't got a clue.
Anyway, they were young. So basically, the first squad and the under 23s, I think, because a lot of them all trained together, and there was a bit of a COVID outbreak, they couldn't play. Now, here's the question: Liverpool versus Villa in the FA Cup. They say, right, play your youth players. It goes ahead. Liverpool versus Villa in the league, if that were to happen, what do you think happens?
What do you mean? Well, you're saying if Villa had to play their young players in the league...
What would happen?
Should Liverpool play their first teams?
No. I just mean, do you think it would go ahead?
Oh.
Because I think, I'll be honest with you, I think if that had been
Probably
in the Premier
not,
League, they would have postponed it. But then I think that kind of shows our argument with the FA Cup, really. In that Villa
the thing with the FA Cup, they have to slide them in as and when the FA Cup's allowed to play games. So I feel like with the Premier League, like they got rid of the Spurs one. Oh, not Spurs. They got rid of. They've just postponed Villa against. I think it was Villa Spurs. They just got rid of that, and now they have replaced. Yeah, they've got Spurs for them, and then they've got. Somebody else is playing that one as well. But you know what I mean? They've got that flexibility. You've got loads of games. Some of them can postponed, some of them need to be redone.
But then would it be any different than if they'd have to do a replay?
Well, yeah, because they've got a specific date where the replays will occur. So it's like, well, if it doesn't happen now, and then you play it on the date of the replay date, what happens if that's then a replay? And it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Then you're in a really sticky position. So I'm not surprised they didn't do it, but I guess that's part of the magic of the cup.
It is part of the magic of the cup. Cliche.
You play what you got.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be having games off.
Yeah, so sorry, that was a bit of a tangent on my part. So going back to the game itself, Liverpool won 4-1. It was kind of 1-1 for a long time, and then Liverpool just scored like 3 goals very quickly, which I guess is to be expected. Young team kind of in Aston Villa. And they did well, in all fairness to them, considering they're not first team players. As in, there's no shame in losing 4-1 to the reigning Premier League champions.
Yeah, by all means, if I was in that team and I lost 4-1, I'd be grateful that it wasn't 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Played a full team squad. Here we go.
So, yeah, as in Klopp did field a very strong team. I guess given circumstances. Bit of a catch-22 though, I guess, because firstly they only really found out like the day before that it was going ahead. So I guess you don't really want to be making last-minute changes there. And I suppose it's one of those ones where if Klopp plays a weakened team, then people. Well, they did it. It happened last year when I can't remember who it was that we played. Can you remember, Josh, last year? In the FA Cup?
No.
But, I can't remember who it was, but we played someone away and we basically played like a weakened team, and people said you're disrespecting the cup.
Was it not the Villa match in the League Cup when Klopp took the whole of the virtually the whole of the first team squad early to the Middle East to play the Club World Cup and left Neil Critchley in charge of the academy side?
It might have been that one. But there was another game where we played like our youth team as well, because I remember like Lurachi playing and.
I'll have a look. It was Everton. We played that team against Everton.
There was a guy who played up top called Cummins, I think. Let me have a look. But yeah, so basically we played a weakened team, and people said, "Oh, you're disrespecting the cup."
But do you not think that scenario is a little bit different? Whereas it was well documented that Villa were COVID stricken, and not Dean Smith, but Villa had announced that they were going to be playing pretty much patchwork 16-year-olds. And it's like, well, you don't need to. But the thing is, you haven't got to play a full strength side to show respect to the cup. But you've got to, if you just play half a good team, half a bad team, you know what I mean? It's like you haven't got to play your first strength squad against these clubs. It's like, but you at least show a little bit of willingness. Because the thing is, when they did it before, they went out, didn't they, as well, when they did it? And it was like, well...
No, we drew.
You drew, okay. But in a sense, it was like, you're showing up all these really young guys, and it's like, well, this game's, you don't really care for it. But then, if you're doing it in a situation where it's like, okay, you've brought half your first team, and then, half some bench players, you haven't got to give it your full attention, because I don't think anybody expects a team to give the FA Cup its full attention until it reaches that.
Well, apart from that, I feel like Alan Shearer does. Alan Shearer's like, you've got to play your best team all the time in the FA Cup. Like every time.
I think that was because Newcastle were never going to win a league. So.
Like literally, every time it comes on the FA Cup, like on the BBC, and someone's playing like a slightly weakened team, Alan Shearer's there like, I just don't get it. Don't get it. It's like, Alan, not everyone cares about the FA Cup as much as you do. But yeah, it's I don't know. I guess it's much of a muchness really, is in, I guess, from Klopp's perspective and from Liverpool's perspective. They've not been in the greatest bit of form. Just to get a win, whoever it's against, was kind of important, I guess.
I agree. It's just about stopping the rot, really.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's just about, like Salah hadn't scored in a few games. Salah gets a goal. Thiago had a bit of a rough time against, who was it that we played last? Was it Southampton?
Southampton, yeah.
Thiago played had a bit of a rough time. He came on against Villa, and okay, he played against a very young team, but he looked like he, kind of kicked on a bit. So I think more than anything, regardless of the context or who we're playing, I think from a Liverpool perspective, Klopp was probably just like, right, let's just win. And just like you said, Josh, stop the rot. So yeah, it'll we'll see what happens with that. And interestingly, the next problem we've got is United versus Liverpool coming up on the weekend. But Liverpool have also just drawn United in the FA Cup as well. So
have they? I didn't notice that.
They have. They've just drawn United in the FA Cup at Old Trafford. So
You know what's disappointing?
go on.
It could have been United Liverpool in the Champions League as well, because the team which pipped Man United to the top 2 spot in the group stage got drawn against Liverpool. So we could have had Man United twice in the league, in the FA Cup, and in the Champions League for 2 legs.
That would have been huge.
Oh, what a season that would have been.
I don't think my blood pressure can deal with that.
That's like Barca against Real from years gone.
That would have been tense. But yeah, United versus Liverpool in the league, that's a big game. Liverpool, like we've just said, have been struggling for a bit of form. United, they played against City. City won. Not necessarily reflective of United's performance, but just generally it's a bit of a reality check. I think it's. And I don't know about you, but I think I said this to you, Jack, as in when United lost to City, I was like, I think City might get the title this year. I really do, because I feel like they've kind of slipped under the radar a little bit, and they're sort of gradually building momentum. And I think the one thing the last couple of seasons you've criticised Man City for is that they've kind of been glued to this philosophy of, we must play the tiki-taka regardless of whether we win or lose. Whereas now it's almost like Pep as just a slight tweak, which means that, okay, the football isn't quite as fluid, I guess, if you want to use that term, and they're not quite as prolific, but they're just winning, like, all the time. So I think City are in a good place for the league.
I'm of the opposite opinion at the moment. Yes, to be fair, if they win the league, they win the league, and they deserve it. But I don't feel like they are where they are because of fantastic performances. Like, they beat United, but they scored 2 set-piece goals. They barely had any opportunities in the game. United had more opportunities than them in the game. And it just feels like they haven't got any sort of attacking outlet at the moment. De Bruyne is sort of doing wonders, and he's got absolutely nobody other than Sterling to give the ball to who can genuinely score.
But then, is that not the sign of champions when you win when you're not playing well?
I feel like it's a little bit more of a case they're clinging on. They're just clinging on. Well, not clinging on in the sense that they're just scraping wins, but clinging on in the sense of there isn't a formula. You don't look at that team and say, this is what they do well. This is how their identity. Because, I mean, as much... I know Pep's sort of doing small tweaks, but I feel like he's gone away from what he does. And as much as I understand what you say, they've gone away from the we must play tiki-taka, I feel like for most of the last season, he sort of just did really bizarre things, like playing Zinchenko in attack and stuff like that. And it's like, what are you doing? I feel like he's so clever at tactics that he's almost to his own detriment. Where he's
sometimes
like,
I agree, yeah.
Because like Jose Mourinho did it when he played Azpilicueta at Cam. It's like, you don't play a left back in an attacking position like that. It's just not going to work. He's not that player.
No.
I feel like Pep's done that for a little bit, and I don't know if the case that he's got so many options, it's sort of bailing him out, but I'm not 100% convinced that they're there yet.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think if we looked at this City team and compared it to teams from the past couple of seasons, like Liverpool and the other teams that were kind of near the top, I'd say no. I think they're a mile away. But I think it's just the consistency of teams this season has just plummeted, like all teams really, compared to last year. I mean, I don't know what you think, Josh. I mean, I look at City at the moment. I see City right now as probably the best of a bad bunch in a weird way.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to predict.
Definitely.
Much harder to predict this season than any other season. But right now, assuming that Liverpool continue to struggle a bit, I think I'd have City as favourites. Not because they've been fantastic.
No.
I think Liverpool, I don't know, the last 3 performances have been ugly. Like the West Brom match, the Newcastle match, the Southampton match. And, we went 1-0 down early against Southampton, and it was a poor goal to concede. And then we had lots of the
Lovely
ball.
finish, mind.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fantastic finish.
Exquisite,
superb,
but yeah.
Superb finish, but poor defending. And then we had lots of the ball, but really...
Didn't really do a lot.
I think Well, we had like one shot on target, I think, by the end of the match,
Cool,
or maybe two. Equally United, I'm not taking this view because I even watched the match. I didn't watch the match, the City United match, but it's a running joke in my workplace that every other one of my friends supports Man United. And on the WhatsApp that we've got going, the comments were Fred is the worst United midfielder ever, and that includes Eric Jemba Jemba. And then one of the other ones went, this has to be the best description of a player I've read. And then one of the other United fans said, that shows just how far off this United team are. Fred and Lindelof can both go, and where the heck was Bailey tonight? And then the next comment was, Martial is lazier than, and I'm not going to finish the sentence. And then the last one was, back to reality, that was shocking. And that's 4 United fans there. So I wonder whether, possibly not, but I wonder whether United will get shown up at some point between now and the season. I wonder whether Liverpool are in such a rotten string of form, and I don't just mean it's only 3 matches long, but it's 3 abject performances.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not like you look at those 3 performances and go, oh well, there's positive to say. It's like 3 pretty shocking performances, really.
Yeah,
considering the quality of players they've got available. For me, we're screaming to have Jota back. As in, we're absolutely screaming for it at the moment, I think.
And there are other issues at the moment. There are other issues with Liverpool, and it does seem to be that we're conceding silly soft goals at the back as well. And has it come to bite us a little bit late that we've lost key defenders? And I guess what I'm saying is when Van Dijk and Gomez got injured, well, like players like Reece Williams and Fabinho just slotted straight into centre back, and we were all. We were raving about them. We were saying, no, Liverpool are not really missing them that badly.
And then all of a sudden...
But I don't know. Is it the type of thing that over time is going to bite us between now and the end of the season? Because the last couple of matches. But you've also got players like Trent Alexander-Arnold making, against Southampton, it's not just down to him, but he makes, his poor defending to let Ings in.
Didn't he give the ball away something like 48 or 38 times?
Well, funny, I was watching it, and I turned to the person I was watching it with, and I was like, I'm literally, every time Trent has had the ball, he's given it away. And I said, I'm not exaggerating. I feel like I can't remember Trent hitting a teammate with a pass. and then when he went off, Martin Tyler on Sky Sports pulled out the stat, and he was like, that is the most times a Premier League player has given the ball away in any match this season.
Wow.
And that was 38 times. 38. And he didn't even play the full match. Klopp pulled him off 15 minutes before the end.
Wow.
So that's rough. You think about it, that's once if he plays 76 minutes, he's given the ball away every 2 minutes, which is crazy for a player of Trent Alexander-Arnold's quality. So there are issues there with Liverpool. I wonder where not irredeemable,
no.
But at the moment Liverpool aren't clicking.
At the moment they're a mile off.
But equally, strangely, I wonder whether Liverpool seasons lost a little bit of momentum and lost a little bit of impetus the moment that Klopp put Jota on against Midtjylland in a dead rubber in the Champions League. And I'm not blaming Klopp. He could have left Salah on, and Salah could have got injured, and then you would have said, "Well, why didn't you take Salah off?" You can't predict these things, but it just with hindsight. With hindsight, I wonder whether we'll look back at that and say, like Jota was banging in a goal a game, and then we lost him in a match that
didn't really matter.
It didn't matter what the result was. But yes, I think at the moment City would, if I were a betting man and somebody said you must bet on one of them right now, I would bet on City. I mean,
it's funny because like I said, this is the 10th episode, and I'm pretty sure every time we've spoken about the title, I'm sure, and this is me now. I'm sure I've said every time, I think it'll be this team that wins the title, and it's been a different team every time. It started off, I was like, Liverpool are going to do it, and then Spurs and Chelsea, then United last week, and now City. It's just a bizarre season. Very, very odd. So,
can I say, going back to United, the comments that your fellow Man United, well, not fellow Man fans, but because you're a Liverpool fan, but I don't 100% agree with the comments they've made there. I feel like that is such a short-sighted opinion on some of those players, because we've been good for a fair few weeks now, and it's one. Well, I don't know why they can say that was the worst game, or back to reality, because we were better than City in that game. we just lost on the basis that they scored 2 set-piece goals. Lindelof's been pretty solid alongside Maguire for the bulk of the season, so I wouldn't have said getting rid of him's a key. And Fred, to be honest, not biggest fan, but I wouldn't say he's atrocious. He's okay, but he's not atrocious.
Is he better than Eric Jamba Jamba?
I don't know about that because I never saw Eric Jamba Jamba play, but I'll be honest. To be fair, I do dislike Martial a little bit on some games because he is very lazy. But I feel like those opinions are far too shaped on the basis of one game. I think it's too short-term an opinion on people because some of those guys have had some pretty decent seasons. Lindelof and Maguire have been very solid at the back so far this season. So I'm not saying United are out of it yet.
Can I just say that United have conceded the most goals out of the top 10 in the Premier League?
Well, yeah, that is what it is. but
and that includes Liverpool conceding 7 in one match.
Yeah.
I still don't think they've played bad.
I
don't think they've played bad either. I just don't think they're quite yet. I don't think they're quite Premier League title winning.
No, yeah. To be honest, that was always tongue in cheek when I was saying that. But I'm not saying that United, like from the perspective of what they were saying, in the sense that United are almost talking as if they're a team that's back in 6th, 7th place. It's like Man United are 2nd in the Premier League on right because they've beaten some decent teams to get where they are. They've stayed consistent and they played some decent football for the bulk of it. Obviously, a lot of it is dependent on how well Fernandes plays, but no, I don't think that Man City game was a bad one from United's point of view. I just think it was the case that we just lost. It was just one of those games where it could have gone either way. I mean, Roy Keane was saying after the first half, even though it was 0-0 at that point, and everyone go, well, there wasn't many opportunities. It was 2 teams going at it and just could not break the other one down, but just going again and again and again. It was no slow football, mediocre. It was attack from both teams. It was a good watch.
There we are. That's the United fans' view. Let us know what you think if you're a United fan or you're not a United fan. Right, should we do Shock of the Week?
Let's.
Have you got one, Josh?
I have.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, my Shock of the Week. I feel like I'm mixing up. What's the first one? Highlight of the week and Shock of the Week.
That's all right.
But Shock of the Week was the first quarter of the Steelers and the Browns game.
You and Jack have alternated for shock and highlights.
How a team can mess up a snap, given a fumble, which is basically a pick six, then throw an interception, and then throw another interception, all in one quarter of a playoff game.
It was disgusting.
Paul.
Yeah, there we are. Do you want to go next, Jack?
Yeah, my shock is Josh's highlight of the week. Crawley Town beat Leeds United 3-0. I was just like, ooh, that's a turn up for the books.
FA Cup upset. And the thing is as well, like Leeds are a
They didn't play
side.
The worst side. There was at least 4 first-team players in that team.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's like, oh, gosh.
Turn up for the Bucks. Right, my shock of the week is one that's fairly recent. Cyril Arbitball is leaving Renault.
Yeah, I did see that. And I went to put it in thinking, put this in, they'd be like, what? And I was like, he's beating me to it. He's got his finger on the pulse more than me. But yeah, I was shocked by that as well.
That's a really... Well, I was discussing this with somebody earlier today, and I think there's a little bit of logic in it. It looks like Renault are kind of going for like this fresh start, aren't they? They've kind of... Daniel Ricciardo's gone. They've gone for a rebrand. When I say rebrand, they're Alpine, aren't they, from this... as of this coming season. So I guess in that sense, it kind of makes sense to, kind of move on and start fresh. But as in, like, you would have thought that Arbitball would have been partly involved in getting Fernando Alonso in. And now he's gone, and Alonso's there. So it just seems a little bit odd to me, really, to be honest. And I guess, at the same time, you can go, fresh start, clean start, blah, blah, blah. Like, Renault had started to build a bit of momentum, really, and they'd had a fairly alright season last season compared to previous. So you kind of think...
You'd think that if it were based on performance, they would have sacked him, or he would have gone at the start of the last season.
Yeah, you would have thought that they would stick for him for the...
What's the purpose of this season if you were going to sack him anyway? Because there's no way you're sacking him on the basis of this season. You were sacking him on the basis of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
As you were saying.
Very bizarre. So there we are. That was my shock of the week.
You know what's funny, though?
Go on.
is that Christian Horner was looking. He made the joke that Christian Horner was looking for a driver and an engine 2 years ago. Now he's looking for a job. It's like, gosh, it's just like what swings and roundabout cruel world the F1 is. It's like, gosh.
F1 is brutal as a sport in terms of fire-ins and hire-ins. There we are. Right, we'll move on to the NFL playoff weekend, round 1. Wildcard round.
Super wildcard weekend.
The Super Wildcard weekend. Did they call it Super because only one team got a bye? Was that their justification?
No.
Right, okay.
No, it's because there's more teams.
I thought
in
it was.
No.
Yeah.
This is the first year they've had seven teams in the playoffs, 6 teams playing from each division.
Right.
The wildcard. It's like wildcard was just 4 games before we had 6.
There we are.
But yeah.
Which is linked to the fact that there's only one team with a bye.
Preach. Yeah.
In summary,
I'm just defending myself. When Jack said, "Oh, is that because there's only one team that had a bye?" And at exactly the same time, I said yes, and you went no.
Like for different reasons.
Nice and clear we are on this podcast. We know our stuff. Right, Jack, do you want to kick us off?
Well, should we start with the AFC?
Yes, let's.
Well, yeah. Bills beat the Colts 27-24. Any thoughts?
It was a cracking match. Really good match.
Enjoy it.
It was tight, wasn't it? It was tight throughout.
It was. What was really frustrating was the Colts made so many decisions in the first half. Looking back, you'd be like, oh, well, you made that one. Why have you made that one? And you're like, just stick to what normal teams do. You just got to keep picking up points. They lost by 3 points in the end. They lost 27-24. And at one stage, they were like 4 yards from the goal, 4th down, so it meant they had to do it in one play, and they went, yeah, we'll go for it. It's like, no. When you're 4 yards away, it's too big a risk. Just kick it. Get your 3 points, get moving. And they didn't. They didn't get the throw off. It missed, and then the Bills get the ball there. They march up the other end of the field and get 7 points. And it was, and then they went for a 2-point one stage.
I know.
Like, why have you gone for 2? But luckily they got away with it by doing another one later on, which made up for that lost one.
Still, though.
Well, if anything, they looked red hot in that final quarter. They got the ball twice, and it only took 5 minutes combined from those 2 possessions to get 2 touchdowns, and they were getting it rolling, and it was just a shame they ran out of time in the end. Well,
and there was the one, wasn't there, where they kind of threw it in behind, and he was stretching for it, and it was it's one of those ones you're like, oh, if he just makes that kind of changed the complexion of the game a little bit, I think. I feel like it was a difficult catch, but seeing them caught. But yeah, like you said, it was one of those ones where you looked at the result and you were like, you couldn't help but feel that the Colts left an awful lot of points on the field, really.
Yeah. But at the same time,
it was at least 14, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of points left out there. Especially when you're only losing by 3 as well, and the other team pretty much maxed out what they could have. And it was kind of like, well, the Bills, they're the 2 seed, and the Colts, they're the 7 seed. It's like, that should have been an easy, comprehensive, no fuss.
Yeah.
They'll put up a fight, but the Bills should win quite easily.
Absolutely.
And they didn't. And I'm kind of hoping that damages their mojo a little bit.
Well, the Bills, you mean?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want them having any swagger.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills, I don't know what it was. Like, the Colts looked like they had another gear that they could go up, whereas it looked like the Bills left everything out there, I think.
Yeah, true.
That's what I thought. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah. Then later on, no, that was the next day, but I was sort of going AFC in order of the games played. Fine. Ravens beat the Titans 30-24. That game was electric. The Ravens won 30-24.
Yeah.
But it was just 2 teams, and it what looks like a rivalry starting out, because they just seemed to hate each other. It's just the slander in the game.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is pretty much the entirety of the Titans' offense.
Yeah.
And he was held to just 18 yards in the first half.
Right.
And he's a 2,000 yard a game. 2,000 yard on the season rusher, and it's like we held him for just 18 for the first half, 40 for the entire game. And they just choked him up. The Ravens went there and said, "We're gonna play."
Yeah.
I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think he had almost like a 55-yard rushing touchdown as well. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's crazy.
Very good.
It was a good game, that. I enjoyed that game. It was.
Did you see their celebration when they got the interception in the fourth quarter?
Was it when they were stamping on the Titans badge on the field? It's just
this unsportsmanship, and then there was just absolute banter.
Pure, like, absolutely derogatory for no good reason.
Well, no, the thing is, the Titans, when they played the Ravens earlier in the season, they won. They sort of had a bit of a jump around on top of the Ravens logo. So this was very much a comeback, like, we're going to win, and we're going to win when it matters more in the playoffs, and we're going to dance on your logo, just to sort of for the ultimate disrespect.
It was, wasn't it? It was like half stamping, but also half dancing, like little victory dance.
Some of them sliding on it. There's all sorts going on.
So basically, it was like a what goes around comes around kind of thing. Very much, bit of tongue-in-cheek dessert it a little bit. I've just seen your next note. That has caught me off guard a little bit about Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he bottles it in the playoffs usually. He lost to the Chargers, big time. That was the season where he took over from Joe Flacco, who I think is the New York Jets' backup quarterback this year, and he was the Broncos' quarterback last year.
Okay.
But this was Joe Flacco had been at the Ravens for years, absolutely years.
Yeah.
And he sort of passed the torch on to Lamar Jackson halfway through the season. He got them to the playoffs, Lamar Jackson did. And then in that game against the Chargers, in the wild card round, they just got obliterated.
Okay.
And there was booing from the Ravens fans towards Lamar Jackson, saying like they need to bench him and get Joe Flacco on. And to be fair to John Harbaugh, the Ravens coach said, no, Lamar's staying out there because he is our guy.
And then
it's like they weren't going to buckle on that. Yeah, exactly. It's like you got to show that trust in some occasions when it is going all wrong.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Titans last year when they were the number one seed. So it is very much a revenge grudge match for the Ravens.
Yeah. Well, there we are. So interesting backstories there. Right. The next result, I'm just putting it out there. I called this before.
You did. To be fair, we did discuss our projections before, and I think all three of us said those first two correctly.
Yeah.
But none of us put the Browns beating the Steelers.
I did. I said I called this.
Oh no! Sorry. That's what I mean. Only you put that one. Sorry, mix myself up mid conversation.
Whoa! I called this result. Don't take that away from me.
But yeah, as Josh was saying before, that first quarter, that was brutal.
What was going on?
To be fair, it's almost like the Steelers turned into a bit of a hype team halfway through the year when they went 11-0, and they were like, don't know what losing is, and you know, never tasted it and all that, and
bit them in
sort of bigging themselves up, doing the TikTok dances in the locker room. Juju Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver, danced on whenever he played an away game, he'd always dance on the opponent's logo at the beginning of it, almost like a disrespect thing. And then he got told, don't do that anymore, because they lost 3 straight. So they're like, okay, so let's sort that back out. But before the game, that Juju Smith-Schuster also said about the Browns, I think they're still the same Browns, team that I play every year. I think they're nameless grey faces. They have a couple of good players on the team, but at the end of the day, the Browns is the Browns.
Oh, that bit him in the bum, didn't it?
It did.
Goodness.
You should have seen them. A few of them were crying on the sideline at the end, and it was like, yeah, you guys kind of deserved that. No one's got any sympathy for you. That's the Browns' first postseason win since 1995.
Wow.
And that's before their quarterback was even born. I think Bill Belichick was the coach back then as well of the Browns.
Wow.
Yeah. Time.
It's crazy. Like, I'm just looking at the scoreboard now because obviously, I didn't watch this game because it was the 1 a.m. game. I've watched the highlights. Like, the Browns scored 28 points in the first quarter. Like, what?
That's just insane.
It's just insane. Like the Steelers outscored the Browns in quarters 2, 3, and 4. But that first quarter, the Browns just absolutely smashed them, basically.
Well,
probably based on errors.
A stat I heard. Oh, saying that. Did I say that? Sorry, I might put the stat at the end. No, I'll leave it for somebody else. Should I leave? Josh, have you got a stat before I say the stat? If you haven't, I won't say the stat.
No, I don't have a stat.
I won't say the stat yet. I'll say at the end there will be a glorious stat about the Steelers in the first quarter. But yeah, you just didn't know what was happening. Roethlisberger threw for 501 yards, which is crazy amount of yards for a game. Still loses. It's like they're just not. I think it showed up when we discussed about the Steelers earlier in the season. We were saying how they had an easy schedule. It showed. I mean, someone's described them today as paper champions. The fact that, they can only get so far, but they're never the real thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. As in the Steelers have always I've not been watching NFL a particularly long time, but when I've seen the Steelers, they've always people say, "Oh, the Steelers are really good," but they've always struck me as one of those teams where people say they're good and their history is supposedly excellent, but I've never actually seen that translated into good performance. So yeah, I don't know whether it's one of those ones where perhaps it sounds like, and I mean it sounds like they got a bit of ahead of themselves. I looked at the records of the two teams, and by the end,
there's only a game in it.
Yeah, as in the Steelers were 12-4, the Browns were 11-5, despite the fact that at one point the Steelers were they 11-0 at one point?
12-0.
Yeah,
11-0. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
11-0.
So, yeah, bit of a weird one, Steelers.
But yeah, I just got someone put a season recap for the Steelers, and they said they beat Daniel Jones, who's not a good quarterback of the Giants, barely beat the Broncos, who've had a bad season, beat Bill O'Brien, who was the Texans' coach, when they were rubbish, and he basically traded away DeAndre Hopkins for a big load of nothing. Beat Carson Wentz, who was the Eagles' quarterback, who got benched halfway through the year. Beat the Browns, but that was without Nick Chubb, who's their number one running back. Just beat the Titans on the basis of quite a few dodgy referee decisions. Barely beat the Ravens earlier in the season. Barely beat the Cowboys with a fourth-string quarterback because Dak Prescott was injured. And that was on a massive comeback as well. Then they beat the 2-win Bengals. They beat the Jaguars with their third-string quarterback. They barely beat the Ravens again, but that was when the Ravens were in COVID ravaged.
Had no one, yeah. They had
so that was basically
no Mark
a
Ingram,
practice
no
squad.
Mark Andrews, no Lamar Jackson, yeah.
Third string quarterback for them as well. Then they lost to the Washington team with no name. They lost to the Bills, which was their first real opponent of the season.
Yeah.
They lost to the Bengals with their backup quarterback by double digits.
Wow.
Then they just beat the Colts with help from the refs, lost to the Browns, then lost to the Browns again. And that's a Browns team, which pretty much the entire team had COVID last week. So they didn't have their head coach of that game yesterday. They didn't have half of their players, basically, or their coaching staff, and they still beat them. So it's not a very good season for the Steelers, considering how easy they had it.
Well, and considering what it was looking to be like at one point, it's kind of just completely tailed off. Completely.
I got worried that they were going to go win undefeated, and I thought, the Chiefs aren't going to be the number one seed.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree.
Then moving on to the NFC, the Seahawks somehow lost to the Rams, which was crazy. I mean, we watched this game for a bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was just defensive choking from the Rams, isn't it? Just... Yeah, Aaron Donald is ridiculous, isn't he? Yeah. It was just a kind of case study in how to suffocate an opponent.
Yeah.
Well, I heard someone say today that Jalen Ramsey, the Rams cornerback, they got him off the Jaguars, I think, last year for 2 first-round picks. And at the time, everyone was like, why on earth are you giving 2 first-round picks for a cornerback? It was like, he's not that amazing. And he's gone up against DK Metcalf, who's the Seahawks wide receiver, 3 times. And Metcalf has been pretty much choked all 3 occasions. And he's gone up against DeAndre Hopkins twice. Also didn't beat him. It's a very good trade looking back at it at this stage. But yeah, just crazy. Because Seattle is almost an entirely healthy team as well. They haven't got any injuries. Not like Chiefs have quite a few offensive line injuries.
Yeah.
The Rams didn't have a quarterback to start the game. They had to sort of bring in their injured first-team quarterback when he wasn't really 100%. But it wasn't pretty, and they still managed to lose. But as you were saying, just choked them out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Although,
I agree with what you said, Josh. It is very much an education in how to kind of suffocate a team, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Sorry,
It
Josh.
did sort of raise the point of, is Russell Wilson a top-tier quarterback? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that you have a kind of top band of quarterbacks in the NFL, and I would have Russell Wilson in that top band of quarterbacks. But, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'd have him in the top band of quarterbacks, but I wouldn't have him in my top three.
So just for context,
or possibly not my top five.
Just for context, who are you including in that top band? Obviously, you're including players like Mahomes. Who else are you putting in there?
I'm
Aaron Rodgers?
including Mahomes, Rodgers, Josh Allen, Brady, Breeze,
Jackson.
Yeah. I don't know, I might be missing a few.
Yeah, but then when you compare Wilson in comparison to those, you're like, well, he's not horrendous, but as in he's not the same level as those, really, is he?
No.
I wouldn't think, anyway. That would be my opinion. What are your thoughts,
I'll
Jack?
be honest, I'm gonna shrink my top tier, and I'm gonna say it's Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, and Allen. I'm not gonna include some of those others because some of those others I do think Wilson is a bit better. I don't really rate Breeze. He's good, but
I think he's well past his best.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And the thing is, I think when the Chiefs played the Saints, I wasn't scared about Drew Brees. But
No.
when I see, I mean, I'm being a bit hypocritical here because I'm saying Jackson. Well, I didn't include Jackson, but maybe I should. But like when the Chiefs play the Ravens, I'm genuinely fearful of Lamar Jackson's ability to run.
Yeah.
When they play Tampa Bay now, but when they play Tom Brady, I'm like, Tom Brady can very well manage a game. He's a good coordinator of a game. And then when you see guys like Aaron Rodgers, he's pretty much Mahomes 2.0. Who's, you know what I mean? Well, maybe Mahomes is Rodgers 2.0 more so. In the sense that they both can throw it wherever they want. They're both pretty mobile. And,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're generally scared. But yeah, Wilson's got a bit of that mobility, but just something about him. It's just they were like, oh, this is the year. He's never had a vote for the MVP, which people were surprised at. And they were like, this is the year. He's going to win it. He's going to get all the votes he deserves. And it's like, it's like a
he's not
fire
quite there.
extinguisher.
And those first 5 games, he was playing incredibly well, and then it was almost as if it all started to stutter and stall after those first 5 games. But I tell you who else I'd have in my top band that I forgot to mention was I'd have Deshaun Watson in there as well.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I think Deshaun Watson is very, very good. But in that top band, right now, or even if you take the last 2 or 3 seasons, well, like Rodgers and Mahomes for me are the two that I think Josh Allen has been very, very good this season. I think if Josh Allen was to go as well again next season, I think I'd probably say, well, okay. But Josh Allen's been very good. And I think he's been the most improved out of all of those quarterbacks in that top band. This time last year, I wouldn't be saying Josh Allen in that group, but I think Josh Allen's form this year puts him in that group.
Yeah.
But I think right now, you'd have Rodgers and Mahomes ahead of all the others, I think. Jackson is...
He's not an amazing quarterback in the sense of passing, but he can get away with it on the basis of how fast he is.
He's just remarkably good with his feet, isn't he? Like, incredibly good. But yeah, no, I mean, I would just about have Russell Wilson in that group,
but at the bottom.
But yeah, I don't think he's as good as Mahomes. I don't think he's as good as Rodgers. I don't think he's as good as Brady.
Thing is,
possibly not as good as Watson either.
It almost seems like everyone's trying to pick a quarterback which is better than Mahomes, because in his first year they was like, oh, he's not better than Breeze. He's not better than Breeze. That's what they were saying. And then he wins the MVP. And then last year they were saying he's not better than Jackson. Lamar Jackson is what the quarterbacks are going to be of the future. And he's, both of those two have now died off. And this year it's like, oh, who's better, Mahomes or Rodgers? The one consistent in all this is Mahomes. And it's like, well, over 3 years, he is very much in the MVP conversation every time. And I mean, across 3 years, these are his first 3 years as well. What's he lost? 1, 2... Well, this season he lost 1. Last season he lost
4 regular season last year, and I think it was 3 or 4 the year before.
So he's lost 9 games, And
for 3 years, yeah.
Well, he's been involved in every game possible, bar one, which was the Super Bowl in his first year. He's played every single other game since.
That's what I was going to say. You're including 3. Well, he hasn't played this one yet, but you're including 2 full postseasons then, nearly full postseasons. But I'm a Chiefs fan, but Mahomes has got to be the MVP this season unless something big changes in the playoffs. He's got to be. And Aaron Rodgers is a fair shout. I think if somebody says, I think it would be Rodgers, I'd say, well, okay. And I think Josh Allen would be my third pick. And again, he's had a very, very good season. But Jack and I were discussing this the other day. Mahomes, when you look at who the Chiefs have played this season, the Chiefs' record this season is 14-2. And one of those 2 was when they rested their entire, all of their best players. So they've lost, with Mahomes playing, they've lost 1 match all season, and that was to Las Vegas, who they then beat 2 weeks later anyway. But if you look at the opponents that the Chiefs have had to play, the Chiefs have had to play Tampa Bay away, New Orleans away, New England away, and I know New England have got a losing record for the first time in
still New England
years, but still going to Gillette is not easy.
And 2 weeks prior to that, the Seahawks were claiming it as some amazing victory that they beat New England in Seattle. It was like, okay, if you're claiming it big then, why is it not big now? It's like Mahomes is still winning the good games.
Yeah, They played. Who was I about to say? Oh, they played Buffalo away.
Yeah.
And in that match, as good as Josh Allen has been, in that match, one of 2 quarterbacks showed up and put in a winning performance, and it wasn't Josh Allen.
Beat the Texans as well.
They beat the Ravens in Baltimore. So the Chiefs have had a tough fixture list this season. You look at all of those teams are playoff teams: Bills, Ravens, Buccaneers, Saints. They played all 4 of them away from home. And when you contrast that with, you were just saying about Pittsburgh's fixture list, sometimes the schedule throws up a list of games and teams are going to think, do you know what, we got a good shot this season. The Chiefs, okay, coming into the season on paper are the best team in the NFL, but they've still had to go and win games, tough games on the road. And I'd argue Mahomes shows up in all of those games. So when the Chiefs beat the Ravens in Baltimore, you've got Jackson and Mahomes. You've got the 2 most recent NFL MVPs playing against each other. Mahomes puts in a winning performance. When the Chiefs play Buffalo away from home, you've got Mahomes and Josh Allen, who's another contender for MVP. Mahomes is the one who puts in a winning performance. Against the Saints, okay, Drew Brees wasn't right. You could see that. You could tell he wasn't 100% against the Chiefs. But I'd say that the Chiefs' toughest game this season was New Orleans away. And New Orleans, they gave Mahomes no time in the pocket all match. Like Mahomes, it was one of those games, and I said this to you, Jack, when I was watching it with you. I said, this game, 3 or 4 minutes into the first quarter, I said, I'm getting the impression that Mahomes is going to be having to slide out of the pocket within a split second of the snap all match.
Yeah.
And it was. And they put in a couple of big hits on him. Still the Chiefs win. Whereas Rodgers...
Oh, he's had a lovely schedule this year.
He has. He's been superb. You can't take that away from him. And his in terms of his passing yards, in terms of his touchdowns, he's slightly ahead of Mahomes in all of those stats. And the other thing that people would say, it goes for Mahomes, is that, look at the weapons Mahomes has got. How often do you hear that argument? He's got Hill, he's got Kelsey, he's got Hardman, he's got Edwards-Helaire now as well. He's got the best weapons in the league. It's as much Travis Kelsey as it is Patrick Mahomes. And not taken away from Travis Kelsey, he's superb, but Mahomes still has to execute what he executes. Doesn't matter how
he's doing
good.
It with pretty much no protection.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, you see Rodgers, like, he hasn't got amazing. It's like he's got the best running back in the league this year. Well, maybe not the best, probably third best. And he's got probably the top 3 wide receiver as well. And he's got decent other weapons, but that offensive line gives him about an hour to work with.
Yeah, and the Chiefs defense, I know in that O-line they've got Chris Jones and they've got Frank Clark.
D-line, yeah.
D-line, yeah. So what did I say?
No, O-line, but
just
have to get that right. No, sorry.
Yeah, no, fair. I know they've got Frank Clark and they've got Chris Jones, who are they're pair of Pro Bowlers, aren't they? Or they have been, a few times over the last few seasons. But as protection, they're so often a bit of a soft touch, and Mahomes is constant. Mahomes, for strings of games on end this season, has been playing pretty much constantly under duress, and Rodgers doesn't have to do that. And equally, Rodgers deserves a lot of credit, because people say, oh, like Aaron Rodgers is making Robert Tonyan look like a top player.
Bob Tonyan.
Yeah, whereas Mahomes has got Kelsey, but Mahomes is having to run out of the pocket all the time.
And the thing is, pace is useless if you haven't got any time for him to get upfield. If you've got to throw it within 2 seconds, they don't get the separation they need. So it's probably even more impressive that he's able to utilise fast guys when he's got pretty much less than 2 seconds to throw the ball every down.
And like I say, the last argument, which we kind of touched on already, is okay, Green Bay can only beat what's put in front of them, and they've got a 13-3 record, and that's very good. But not many of those teams were teams with winning records. I think only 3 or 4 of them were teams with winning records.
And they got absolutely hammered by the Buccaneers.
By Tampa Bay,
Like, as much as Mahomes may lose a game or have a bad game, he never gets hammered. They lost 38-10. Aaron Rodgers was awful, but because that's at the beginning of the season, no one remembers it anymore, and all the votes are probably going to end up going for Rodgers because he beat a bunch of nobodies at the end of the season. I mean, he ended the season off with the Bears, the Titans, but that Titans game was in the snow, the blizzard up in Lambeau Field, so, that's something the Titans are never going to prepare for. So a Bears, the Titans in a bad situation, the Panthers, the Lions, the Eagles, the Bears again. It's like, oh gosh, that's about a hard stretch there. Those aren't hard games to win. So, yeah.
I think Mahomes. I think Mahomes is just he's just a winner. Like he's just. I don't know. He's just got such a growth mindset, such a growth mentality. Like I know you could say that lots of people would probably say this about lots of athletes. I genuinely believe that Mahomes is never psychologically beaten. And, when they, 28-0 down or 24-0 down to the Texans in the playoffs last year, that footage emerges of Mahomes on the sideline saying, come on, we're not out of this, we've got to get going. And we watched that in retrospect, but he genuinely believes that as he's saying it at the time. Yeah. When we're watching it as Chiefs fans thinking, we got no chance. Like we're all over the place.
We've gotten to this point and we're going to lose. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, and I can't remember which game it was. I'm looking at the Chiefs fixture list now, but it might have been the New Orleans game. But there was a game where I can't remember which one it was. There was a game where the Chiefs, basically Mahomes had to do a 2-minute drill, and the Chiefs right at the end of the game, and the Chiefs had like kind of laboured all match, like small yardage, like big Russian defence, forcing Mahomes out of the pocket, minimal gain, and then Mahomes just went on a length of the pitch drive in like 1 minute 30, and winning, like game winning drive.
Oh,
and
we did it in a few games. You did against the Chargers right at the beginning of the season.
I feel like it was late. Was it Vegas away maybe?
It could have been Falcons towards the end as well.
I think I'm thinking of Las Vegas away because I'm looking at the score here and it was 35-31 and I'm
pretty
sure
they did get a late one on that one when Kelsey caught it in the final few minutes. Yeah,
and the Raiders were a team that just about a month earlier had beaten the Chiefs at Arrowhead anyway, and all of a sudden you throw them the ball and you're like, right, 2 minutes, off you go. And even though everything that happened in the game before that point suggested they're going to struggle to get up the pitch in 2 minutes, they do it with 30 or 40 seconds to spare, and I think Mahomes has to be the MVP. But if Allen or Rodgers were to win, I think I don't think it's right, but it's fair enough. If anybody other than those three won, then I'd say it's not right.
Fair. Just to round up the other playoff games, the Saints dominated the Bears. I mean, there's not really much to say in that one. No. The Bears were rubbish. And Tampa Bay, surprisingly, got taken to the end by the Washington football team. Should have been a promise.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be a losing team next season. Like, they did that with a quarterback from the XFL, which is sort of Vince McMahon, the WWE owner, created that league, and it's basically just for sort of NFL rejects or guys from the college that haven't made it in, and it's basically NFL with no rules. And they got a quarterback from there playing for them against Tampa Bay in the playoffs, and he took them the distance. He was like, they genuinely could have won that game. It'd been a a bizarre circumstance for them to win, but they were in that game.
Perhaps they should stick with the Washington football team as their name.
It'd be interesting to see what they do call themselves.
What does XFL look like? Like, what does NFL look like without
to be
some
honest,
of the rules?
Oh, it's gruesome. Like, when a player punts, if the punt's easily catchable, but the guy thinks, I'm going to get tackled as soon as I catch this, they
Fair
can wave
catch,
their hand. And they do the fair catch and they catch it. No one's allowed to touch them. The fair catch rule does not exist in the XFL. So someone will sit there looking at the skies, waiting to catch the ball, whilst there's two guys getting ready to pincer him right in the throat with their helmets and just go at him. And that is kind of the XFL. It's just, there's no you can't abuse the quarterback when you sack them in the NFL, but in the XFL you can pretty much swing him by the helmet. They really don't care. But yeah, that is the XFL. It always seems to come for about a month, and then they sort of financially can't compete, and then they're like, okay, we'll close it down again. So they just keep bringing it up and losing it again. In other news, Deshaun Watson wants a trade. Potentially the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's from Miami, but he seems to like it there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one though, isn't it? Because they've just got Tua.
Yes, Tua Tonga Vailoa.
Yeah, and it seems like they kind of, you'd assume that they're going to stick with him. He's had a bit of a, I don't know.
The thing is, him and Ryan Fitzpatrick were the quarterbacks this season for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick for the first half, then they swapped to Tua for the second half. But on 3 or 4 occasions, Tua really didn't get going, and they brought in Fitzpatrick again to finish the game out to win them. So I don't know if they're 100% sold on him as a guy. And I guess the Texans are about to start a rebuild, so...
Yeah.
They've got no first-round picks for the next 2 years.
Yeah, so Watson could just be kind of looking ahead a little bit, couldn't he?
Yeah. Well, also, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans were like, well, we can't keep Watson on this expensive contract and we've got to get rid of him. Why don't we get Tua for dirt cheap money, a pick, and then, get rid of Watson because, he's not going to play particularly well for them, I don't think.
Fair enough.
In the current circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Eagles fired their head coach today.
Yes.
Just 2 years on from a Super Bowl win.
2 years on from their statue outside their stadium, isn't it? Picture of
yes, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
Foles and Peterson, and now they're both gone.
So that's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah.
We run out of time a little bit, but I just wanted to sort of bring up the question of does sport have any loyalty? I mean, the Eagles have never won a Super Bowl, and then they win one and they sack their head coach 2 years later.
Yeah.
Chelsea win the Champions League, sack their coach a few months after that. Leicester win the Premier League, sack their coach a few months after that. Red Bull have any driver who's slightly successful, and they'll get rid of them for anyone who looks slightly promising. So does any sport have any loyalty to a coach or a player?
Absolutely not. Yeah, no. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Sport is fickle.
Yeah. What are your picks for this weekend, then?
Oh, what, results-wise?
Yes. Bills, Ravens?
Josh?
Bills, just.
I'm going to say Bills, because I have to, because I predicted that they were going to win the Super Bowl last week.
Only just.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no,
that's
a
close.
Tough one.
Close match, that.
I'll be honest, I'm going to go Ravens. I haven't even put that on my one for the other thing, but I'm saying the Ravens. I think they go in there with more swagger, and I think that's going to get them through. Chiefs, Browns?
Chiefs
as well. Tampa Bay, the Saints?
Saints.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Saints just.
I'll be honest, with these games now, I'm purely going based on how they perform in the regular season, and the Saints beat Tampa Bay twice, which is why I'm saying them. But the thing is, it's almost like a vicious circle, because Tampa Bay beat Green Bay, who beat the Saints, who beat Tampa Bay. So because the Saints are playing Tampa Bay now, I'm going to say that the Saints are going to beat them again. But had LA not beaten the Seahawks, which would have changed up the seeding, I would have said that Tampa Bay were going to beat Green Bay. and I wouldn't know how the Seahawks Saints one would go, and it's potentially I would have said Tampa Bay could have gone to the Super Bowl, but because the way the season's worked out, I think Tampa Bay are going to go out this weekend to the Saints, and I also think the Packers are going to beat the Rams this week. What do you think about that one?
Packers think.
Before the weekend, I would have just jumped and said, yeah, Green Bay. But I don't know. The Rams defended incredibly well. But then you wonder whether Rodgers has been very good this season, so
to
probably
be fair,
Green Bay.
If Jalen Ramsey can shut down, what's the Packers wide receiver, Devontae Adams, if they can shut him down the same way he shut down all the other guys he's played this season, who knows what happens? Because Rodgers doesn't like to throw to anyone but him, and it could come down to the running game.
Just saying,
interesting.
If that is what this round of the playoffs ends up looking like, that's pretty meaty, isn't it? Saints. So I'm assuming we're basically saying Saints, Packers one side, and then Chiefs, or Ravens,
and
or Bills.
It's a tough one. It's a 50-50, but either
Bills
one
or Ravens.
Yeah, but either one of those
games
is a meaty fixture. So,
like compared to last year when the Chiefs played the Titans, and I think most people knew the Chiefs were going to win that.
Yeah. It's close.
Yeah. I mean, and you consider if the Steelers beat the Browns and the Seahawks beat the Rams, you'd have the Ravens, the Bills, the Steelers, the Chiefs, Tampa Bay, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Packers all. I mean, that's just an absolutely electric set of divisional round games. That's like, whoa, this is just disgustingly good.
Stacked. There we are. That's the NFL roundup. We'll do our stat of the week before we finish off. Should I go first for this one?
Sure.
Okay, my stat of the week is that AC Milan have their second highest points haul after 16 games since 2000. 37 points. The only time they've had more at this stage in the season was 2003-2004, where they had 39 points. In that season, they finished first in Serie A.
Wow. My stat of the week is that Liverpool have conceded more goals with Virgil van Dijk this season than without him, despite he's only played in 4 games. They've conceded 13 goals in the 4 games he's played, and they've conceded just 8 in, I think it's close to 10 games without him. So I don't know what's happened there, but
bizarre.
Perhaps they're a better team without him. They should sell him.
The Villa match happened.
Yeah, the Villa match, that's what happened.
Whatever happened that match, that happened, yeah.
Josh, have you got a stat?
No.
Okay.
I gave you the stat earlier, Josh. I didn't use it for this particular reason. I put it in the
Oh, really? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Right, I'll ask again.
Was that to make sure that the podcast didn't end on an anticlimax?
Yes.
I'll ask again. Josh, have you got a stat?
Oh, yeah, I have apparently.
Good.
Hang on. Yes, I've got it. I thought long and hard about this one. Yesterday was the Steelers' 10th game in a row without scoring a single point in the first quarter.
Wow, that's a good stat.
Incredible.
I'd love to know where you found that.
And I was genuinely surprised. I heard it, I did. No.
What do you mean?
Josh,
it's Josh's stat.
That's Josh's stat, of course.
There we are. Right. That is the end of this episode of the Down to the Wire podcast. Thank you all for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, perhaps you could subscribe. Give the video a like. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you very much.
You can follow on there.
Oh, yes. Follow on Spotify. Do that.
That is a function.
That is a function. Follow on Spotify. Look at me showing that I don't know much about Spotify. Follow on Spotify. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts.
Yeah.
Am I good?
Yeah, Spotify, but yeah, you've already said that on YouTube, obviously.
Yeah, there we are. So thank you, Josh, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me back.
And Jack and I will speak to you next week.